It has been forever since I've been able to say this, but welcome to another episode of Living Martyrs. And it's the first time I'm able to say this. We're going to South America, baby. Let's see what the Saints are getting up to in South America, man. You know what? I'll just tell you, bro. They're smuggling Bibles throughout cartel infested areas, right? So what I've got for you today is a slideshow type presentation, because they gave a whole bunch of photos in this issue, photos from the front line, so I'm gonna go through each of them, read the caption, give my little thoughts on each one. So it'll be a lot shorter video, but I think having the visual will be something really, really good for you guys. But before we do get into it, I did want to read the letter from the president. Here's a cool little picture of them doing their thing. Let me see, what's this happening? Yeah, they're traveling through the red zones, basically. All right, so from the Voice of the Martyrs president, the letter is titled, Deny Yourself and Journey into Your Red Zone. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. Journeying into your red zone, into your uncomfortable spaces with the gospel for Jesus Christ. All right. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. Really important stuff. All right. So from Cole. It is our pleasure this month to take you on a pictorial journey with Rollo, a former communist guerrilla, as he takes God's word into the jungles of Colombia, some of the most remote and violent places on earth. These red zones are controlled by guerrilla and paramilitary groups that oppose Colombia's government and are funded by cocaine trafficking. The guerrillas maintain power by committing unspeakable acts of cruelty against helpless villagers, frequently abducting and murdering Christians, especially pastors and their children, with impunity. Some guerrillas oppose the gospel on the basis of their atheistic communist ideology, while others oppose it simply because it's inconvenient to their criminal activities. It definitely is. Despite being threatened, beaten, and even tortured, Rollo has continued to distribute Bibles in these areas for 20 years. While every trip poses great risks, they also bring him great joy, which you can see shining brightly in his eyes. I've known Rollo for many years, and have never seen him lack a joyful sense of purpose, even in the hardest times. He has this in common with the several hundred red zone pastors with whom I've served over the years. Our Lord said, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." When we consider this call of discipleship, it is important to remember that he told us the first step is self-denial. To follow him, we will need to suffer intense shame and hardship, but we cannot faithfully walk this path unless we first turn away from, and indeed put to death, selfishness. Whether we call it survival instinct or something else, the truth is that our fallen human nature is self-serving at its core. As Christians, however, we're not our own. We belong to God, who has bought us with a great and terrible price. The most common way we are identified in the New Testament is as those who are in Christ. We are meant to be united with Christ and to go forth spending ourselves for his glory in the fallen world. Yet we too often treat our self-interests as idols and cling to our desire for comfort and safety. In the following pages, as you experience bold ministry deep inside Colombia's red zones, I pray that you will ask God to lead you out of your comfort zone and into your next red zone. May you prayerfully and boldly follow Christ into a decision, place, interaction, or situation that requires you to deny worldly desires in order to glorify him. You may suffer if you do, but you will in turn receive the joy of the Lord and eternal purpose. Cole. So, without further ado, let's get into Colombia's red zones. Alright, so I've got myself commenting on these as well as my wife.
Hey.
Alright, so for our first picture, just reading the caption here, it says Rollo has been distributing Bibles in Colombia's red zones for years. While he's not the only one doing the essential work, he has unique access to some of the most dangerous areas because he was once a member of a guerrilla group. Give me the Bibles and the gasoline to take them, and I'll get them there, Rollo says. Rollo's work requires him to be a meticulous logistician, a faithful pastor, and when his vehicle breaks down in an isolated area, a creative mechanic.
I think that speaks to like two things. One, just like the perspective shift of like us here, like in America, or just in the West in general, of just like people's commitments to go places. Like, oh, that's 30 minutes. That's too far for me. Compared to this guy who's like literally on a motorbike. He's like, if you give me the gas, I'll do it, no matter how far or what the terrain looks like. So just first and foremost, like if you're motivated for the gospel, you're gonna make it happen. And then I think too, this also just reminds me I think especially like what we've been walking through, that God uses all of your circumstances, even like the dark ones, for his glory, right? Like he uses this man's testimony of his life before Jesus, in dealing with drugs and stuff, like for the glory of the kingdom, in order to have those connections to spread the gospel later on. Like God didn't just allow it, he ordained it. Like he wanted him to go through that in order to have his kingdom be grown.
And the striking thing for me with this entire image is just the juxtaposition, which is why I really wanted to do this video in this format. Because you can see, like, a lot of us, first off, like my wife said, it'd be a big commitment for some of y'all just to take Bibles on a motorbike through hot, dense jungle. But if you were going to do that, you'd want it to look like the majority of this picture, dude on the bottom right, or Rollo on the bottom right here, where it's like, oh, nice, easy path, a little scenic route to it too, looking all cute. No one wants to be Rollo on, in the top left here, motorbike stuck in the mud, jeans and boots, all sorts of muddied up. And it's South America, so it's humid, flies are eating you up, you know what I'm saying? Like no one wants to be Rollo on that day, but that is what you signed up for. You're like, don't just be a fair weather Christian, man. Like, you're on the job, no matter what's happening, Like, not to mention, it really does image Christ, Jesus didn't stop when things got difficult.
Right.
So like, why should you? Why should you? And like I said, it's just convicting for me because like, oh, there's no AC in the car. And it's raining. I'm not gonna go to church today. Yeah. And it's like, well, look, I'm not even gonna get into that. There's other pictures that will come later on that will completely crush that.
Yeah, for sure. This next page says, in the violent red zones where Rollo serves, most of the villagers are involved in growing or processing coca for the drug trade. Living among the various armed groups for decades has caused people to become deeply suspicious of outsiders, but Rollo's friendly manner has encouraged them to open up enough to accept the Bible from him.
All right. The conviction for me here is, look, I'm not saying that you're not talking to people like that. I'm just saying that a lot of what's happened in American Christianity has kind of discipled us, whether we intended it or not, to straight up avoid people like that.
Yeah.
It's like, stranger danger, which I guess sure has some wisdom, but still, like, we take that a little bit too far to say, oh, look at that. Those are the people that process the coca. You don't want to talk to them. All right. You don't want to talk to them. But Mommy, Daddy, what if Jesus told me to talk to them? Don't you listen to that boy Jesus. He got crucified. Yeah. All right, I'm trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Right? Like I know what's best for you. But Jesus calls you to talk to the unmentionables, man. That's just what he calls you to do. And he calls you to do it in such a way that you can actually build relationships with people to the point where, yeah, they might just accept the Bible from you. They might just hear you out on this Jesus that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think like going off what you said, just that like he's called to the people that are on the outside, or they are the outsiders in a sense, right? But he also is one, just in a different capacity. Like he stands out in a way that he's friendly in a way that they've been, like you said, trained not to. They've been brought up not to be friendly. They've been brought up to be closed off, but that's not what we're called to do. Like it's not a biblical stance to be a loner in a cabin in the woods. Like we're not called to isolation. We're called to be a city on a hill, and we're called to be light in the world. You can't really be light if you're hiding away, or if you're refusing conversations with people just based off of partiality, which is what James talks about. So him being just having a friendly demeanor, just that in and of itself is a way to have a conversation.
And just something that kind of hit my mind right now is when Jesus said to his disciples, look, man, like it's impossible for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven, right? And the disciples were shocked at that. This is one of those lived experiences, I think, that really shows why Jesus said, no, it's impossible, right? Because when you're forgiven much, you love much, when you realize who you used to be in the sight of God exactly, then it makes it a lot easier to talk to people like this, because you realize spiritually you're no different.
Yeah.
But when you come from high-end society, when you come from not the worst sections, not the wrong side of the tracks, and you come from the right side of the tracks, and you still categorize yourself as coming from the right side of the tracks, especially that one, when you still categorize yourself as from the right side of the tracks, you're still going to have barriers to talking to people like this. It's like you'll study your theology textbooks in the safety of your home study, but you won't go live that theology out that you're reading about in the quote unquote danger of the streets, even though from my experience, the streets really aren't that dangerous. like some are, but most of them really aren't as dangerous as our fears kind of make them out to be in our own minds, and add to that, if you're in Christ, you're not going to go until it's your time. So get out there,
Yep.
You ready for the next page?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know who's reading on this one. I think it's
you.
me. Oh yeah, it is me. I love this photo. When Rollo delivers a load of Bibles to a group of Red Zone pastors, he serves as their connection to the global body of Christ. These dedicated men and women serve in difficult and dangerous places, receiving little outside encouragement. A gift of Bibles for their congregations strengthens their faith and assures them that they're not forgotten.
Okay, so stories like these are always really convicting for me because, I love the personal Bible that I own. Kari can attest to the fact that I mark up sticky notes, all of that, right? I cherish it. But I also, with this, it speaks more to just being excited to have a book that you can mark up for your own self. It speaks more to the fact to me that, they were preaching the gospel without one, which meant that when they did have access to a Bible, they were absorbing it and meditating on it. And was it somewhere in Psalms where it talks about meditate on the law day and night? That's just a constant going through and studying on their own without actually having a tangible Bible to begin with, right? And so they're excited because now they actually have one in print, and that they have one that they can share with those that they're sharing Christ with. It's not just spoken words at this point, not that God can't use that, because obviously he is, but just that's part of this excitement here.
Also, here again, just absorb this image, absorb the big image, right? Has Christianity ever looked like this much work to you? just really consider that. Has it ever looked like, maybe not this exact situation, delivering Bibles in a dangerous place on a riverfront, but has it ever looked a bit more difficult than your Sunday fellowship brunches?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Not saying that the Sunday fellowship brunch was ever bad. I'm just saying, does your Christian kingdom work extend just a smidge past that, at least? And look at dude's smile in the top left corner, man. He's loving it. He's loving it. And it's just exactly what Jesus said. He'd be with us. As we're with him on the front lines building his kingdom, Jesus is right there with us, and look at you, joyful to the core of your soul in a situation where the rest of the world and a big chunk of our Christian kind of ethos is kind of, again, discipling us, whether they want to, knowingly or not, discipling us against going to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think too, something else in this picture that stands out to me is the fact that they were like so excited they open a couple of boxes, but it's very obvious that they're standing there praying, like they can't open up each one because they're just overwhelmed and had to thank God for it. Like how often am I the recipient of good things and I just walk past it, or I'm like, oh, cool, check the box, awesome, I got a thing, instead of like standing in the middle of and being like, thank you God just for this gift that I took for granted for so long.
It's just heavy, man. Like, do you consider the fact that while some of y'all are out here scared for, in my opinion, just literal nonsense, like scared for political things that don't matter, scared for virus stuff that'll pass, and in the meantime, like, we got front lines people in South America. How often do Americans think of South America, period? Like,
outside of like a ritzy cruise destination, like I think that's another thing too. Like in our mind we think of it as like, oh cool, they've got like all this stuff, but look, no, it's a third world country. Like guerrilla warfare is happening and like no one ever talks about it, no one ever acknowledges what that means, especially for the kingdom. So, yeah.
Be like that, man.
So this next page,
I think this one's you. Yeah,
this one is me. In some parts of Colombia's dense jungles, rivers are the main transportation arteries. Wooden canoes in the local fashion are crucial to pastors not only for moving Bibles between communities, but also for visiting church members and bringing people to church. While the boats are essential tools, they leave Rollo and other pastors vulnerable to attack by armed guerrillas on the shore.
Okay, look, man. This is the picture I was talking about when I said like some of y'all about to have to get convicted on that. Man, like there's no AC in the car. Man, it's a little long of a drive.
I don't have bug spray.
Oh my gosh. My first world problems make it so difficult to attend church. Bro, they're on a canoe potentially getting shot at while always getting eaten by mosquitoes because it's South America.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to hear your excuses, man, because compared to this, that's what they are.
Right. And I think, too, like, just looking at the picture, like, he just seems so relaxed on the box, Like, if they were to snipe him, hey, they got some Bibles now. Just like, even if the worst happens, hey, they still got Jesus.
Like, some of y'all really, look, for those of you that didn't want to go to church because you were afraid to take COVID somewhere, it's fine, whatever. For those of you that were afraid to go because you might catch it, you know what I'm saying? When you live, again, asterisk, when you live in a nation that's got free vaccines that might have helped protect you from it, I'm just saying. But when you're afraid to catch it, bro, are they not afraid to catch a bullet?
Yeah.
One of those is more lethal, more quickly, more effectively than the other. That's all I'm saying. And y'all are like, or I shouldn't say all of y'all, but some of y'all are like, I don't know if I'm really gonna engage in fellowship. It's only been 2 years. What's the damage that it could do? Right. And it's, again, like,
it's one of those things, like, the risk factor here is literally life and death. The risk factor here, if you take all the precautions that are available to you, you don't have to sit up next to people to go to church. You can sit in the back corner if you want and still talk to people with the mask on, vaccinated. You can mitigate all the risks, essentially. Just about all, enough that you could still go. But like, he's literally saying like the main risk is I die and it's worth it.
Yeah. Or you could do what the rest of the world does and be like, hey, I've got a home with AC and food and Wi-Fi. I could have some people over for legit fellowship.
Right, because we can have people over for dinner, but we can't have people home for home church.
But that's the difference between I'm just doing this to check the box. Right. Oh, I can't check the box anymore. Teacher, let me out of my homework for this weekend. Versus, no, that's my family.
Right.
You don't keep me away from my family.
Right.
Not for extended periods, man.
Right.
Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, where are you at? Let the pictures convict. Is all I got to say.
There's no way you can see it coming too. Like, if they were to come for him, like, let's just look at that bush. Like, there's no way you can see through that.
Just a bluff. You can't climb out of that.
It's no big deal. That's why he's so chill. He's like, if I go, I go.
All right, next picture, bruh. For a short time, it appeared that rebel groups that had been fighting the government for decades might disband. Unfortunately, increased guerrilla and paramilitary activity has returned. The armed groups have closed many churches in the past 2 years, either by chaining the door, threatening church members, or killing the pastor. Christians in the remaining areas meet cautiously, knowing they're being watched.
Yeah, that's just a lot there. Like,
There is a lot
there's a lot there.
This
Like,
is
that's
true.
you know,
That's a lot.
like that's convicting in a sense. Like for me, like having a conversation with a coworker, knowing somebody who does not want to hear about Jesus is listening. You know, like that's just an uncomfortable workplace environment compared to here, where it's like, no, they're literally scouting out evidence to kill you. Like those are the people that are listening to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
You know.
the government's not going to help you here.
Same, but not at all the same.
Not at all
The
not at all the
discomfort
same.
is drastically different.
Now, again, I just have to, just kind of beat the horse I was talking about on the last picture. Like, their doors are chained up for different reasons. Our doors were chained up because COVID. Makes sense to me. Their doors were chained up because you had drug cartels that were like, your Jesus is starting to cut into our drug profits. We don't like that very much. Again, that makes sense to me. That's what the world is going to do. If they're not going to bend the knee to the lordship of Christ, then that's just what it's going to have to come to. But for a lot of us here in America, that just would have been the end of the church. Because, I don't really need it. What's it really matter?
Church is just a social club, and
and who's dying for a social club?
Exactly.
Are you dying for your golf resort, little country club?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
But would you die for Jesus?
Yeah.
Like the answer should at least be a tentative yes.
Yeah.
Like at the very least, it should be I should want to. I recognize I should want to. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I recognize I should want to.
Right.
If it came to it.
Right.
If you're not there, if you're not in that place of wrestling, wrestle to get there, man.
Yeah.
Cause that's what it's about, dude.
Right.
That's what it's about.
Also, can you just imagine the anticipation of 2 years of being on edge preaching?
Yeah.
It's not just like, it's a couple weeks, phase or whatever. No, this is years.
Yeah, that's just what this is.
Yeah. This is just their life at this point. It's not just a pandemic that will eventually go away, but this is like life, until this goes away.
And also, I'm going to say it. Some of y'all need help seeing these people as people. I'm just saying it. Look, some of y'all have been poisoned by that, illegal versus legal immigration debate. And y'all missed the fact that Jesus is still trying to build his kingdom across that border as well as on our side of the border.
Right.
I'm just saying. I'm not making a political statement, though some of y'all going to take it that way. I'm just saying some of y'all lost being able to see human beings.
As human beings.
In the midst of all of this.
Right.
Anything else for this one?
No, not from this page.
I think you're reading this one.
I am. Rollo must plan and coordinate with the Columbian Bible Society, a shipping company and pastors living within a 6-hour motorcycle ride of this church on the edge of a red zone, in order to deliver truckloads of Bibles to the pastors. The pastors then divide the Bibles among themselves according to their needs before distributing them in their home churches. Not like their big multi-million-dollar facilities, their home churches.
Yeah. My house.
Right, exactly. Their 6-hour motorcycle ride can extend to 2 days during the rainy season because of nearly impassable roads and trails.
Okay, so look, that's a lot, right? Let's start with the imagery because that's why I got it up. Look at this. This is a church gathering. Yeah. I just want you to really let that run through your mind. This is a church gathering. That's just what this is. This big truck here on the far right, every single crate of those just filled up with Bibles. And this house, that's like a tiny little epicenter of Christianity here in the Columbian countryside. Looks very different than the sorts of things that we insist our church need to be before we deign to grace it with our presence. If I'm going to receive anything from this, then it's got to be this, and this. And it's like, no, how about you get off your high horse, realize that you wouldn't even be part of the church universal if Jesus didn't do what he do and serve some people and actually sacrifice a bit. and get over your look, I'm just gonna say it because I've never been that nice of a dude. Look, your church trauma really ain't that bad. If it's not, all I'm saying is if it wasn't like the priest raping you or something, if it was less than that, it ain't that bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone said some mean things about you and was rather judgmental of you. Okay, because what? The LGBTQ side of the fence isn't? You've got to push your way past judgmental people in any group that you attach yourself to find the people that actually care about what it's about. So why would you assume the church would be any different? And, you know, once you actually get your hands dirty and start serving, then that stuff tends to melt away pretty easily. Also, just got to highlight 6-hour motorcycle ride.
I was about to say, so I've actually ridden a motorcycle in the Philippines. So like the third world, you know, country motorcycle experience is unique compared to a motorcycle experience in America. So like for the Westerners listening to this, which is probably all y'all, like it is not a fun Sunday drive. It is, oh my gosh, I almost died. Oh my gosh, that thing I was carrying is now long gone. Oh my gosh, I need to hold on for dear life. Oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Like every 30 seconds. There's potholes, there's mayhem, there's craziness, right?
The 6 hours was like the best case scenario.
Exactly.
It could extend to 2 days during the rainy
season,
which means that you're the first picture of Rollo scraping mud out of his spokes.
Right, but exactly. So like I couldn't imagine that for 30 minutes. Like the 30-minute ride was hard for me. I can't imagine 6 hours while carrying like a package full of Bibles.
I mean,
you know?
Yeah.
That's insane to me.
That's just what it is, man. Like,
yeah.
And y'all be out here like, I ain't got time to read my Bible.
I don't got time.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. This one is a really pretty picture. I like it. Distributing Bibles in Colombia is physically demanding, both because of the primitive or non-existent roads, and because of the speed at which distributors must perform their work to avoid being noticed by one of the many armed groups. Communist guerrillas, as well as right-wing paramilitary groups, use the cover of the jungle for growing, processing, and transporting their lucrative drug crops.
Yeah, this is insane. Like, you just gotta like just set it in for a minute. Like again, like there's so much jungle here that like when you're riding through it, you have no idea where it's gonna come from. Like you can't see it coming. It's like there's no defense really. Like you just kind of have to accept the fact that that's your fate when you go to this kind of thing. So yeah, I just also the words primitive or non-existent roads. So like it's not really mapped out. It's just kind of like, you know,
this trail
compass
worked for the last couple of years.
Right. You know, one bad rainstorm and it may not be there anymore. So just like the faith to be able to like go in a direction and, you know, trust that God's going to lead you home. Like that's pretty big to me. So
like one thing I just need again to notate, because I spend a lot of time deconstructing. I'm just look, man, communist guerrillas, and some of y'all listening are like, dang straight.
Yeah.
Of course, them commies would be attacked, but as well as right-wing paramilitary groups. Look, this is just their testimony. They're saying, look, the people that shoot at us are on the left and the right. Look, I've said it before in Bible studies in Luke. I've said it before in Table Flippers. Said it like maybe every playlist, let me say it at least once. But as a true Christian, the left and the right should really not be able to call you like a friend.
Yeah.
You know? Like they really shouldn't, for two totally different reasons.
Right.
You know? But it all comes down to the communist kingdom feels threatened by your presence because you're bringing Jesus, who's got his own way of doing things. And the right-wing paramilitary kingdom is threatened by your and their existence. Because, again, Jesus is coming to bring a different way of doing things. Yeah. Right? So I'm just saying this because some of y'all really need to understand. It's very possible and happening right now that, right-wing conservatism is the very thing trying to kill the Son of God with no remorse in this generation. I know.
Yeah. It's just one of those things, like, don't mix up your identities, you know? Like, if you're going to claim Jesus wholeheartedly. You don't need a second identity of red or blue. You know, like if Jesus is king, let him be king. Don't have him compete because he won't, because, you know, he's God.
Yeah, like when you're
So,
when you're
like,
almighty, there is no such thing as competition.
There's no such thing as competition.
There's
so
I'm just choosing.
don't try
not
to make one up.
Right. It's just I'm choosing not to win right now for your sake.
Right, exactly. All right, so I got this last page. Children in remote towns and villages who see little hope of a future beyond the subsistence farming of their parents are lured to there's a glare, to armed groups by promises of financial gain if they aren't forced to join as expendable foot soldiers. The hope of belonging to an eternal kingdom, as promised in God's word, is the only solution for Columbia's future generations.
And might I say also the only solution to all of this nation's ills? But I say that not the way some people say it, where it's like, oh, to preserve the kingdom of America, we've got to use the means of Jesus to keep this American system going longer. No, I just mean the solution for the people is the kingdom, right? The solution for the American system is the kingdom of Christ. Not the solution for the American system is the kingdom of Christ. All right, that's mixing two different worlds right there. It's not the same. And the reason I'd actually even wanted you to do this was just because of what you were saying about like that one person you knew.
Yeah. So like, in Cambodia, I met on a mission trip, I met a family, and this was like a community that lived on like an old cleared landmine. And they lived on the border of Thailand, which is it's one of, if not the most trafficked borders in the country. And she was saying how, in order to feed some of her kids, she had to sell one, which blew my mind, which is the purpose, like when we were partnering with that organization and that mission trip, like that was part of the reason why they were there, was to build like sustainable employment. So that way that doesn't have to be a thought of how to feed your family. And to think like this too, it's like your kids are foot soldiers, like they're expendable. They're like, it's just like a magazine you're going to throw out, you know, it doesn't matter. They don't see them as Imago Dei. They don't see their life as having any value. And in these like in times of desperation, like Imago Dei gets thrown out, you know. And it's heart-wrenching to think that you can have like your kid, and it could be your only kid too, you know, like the legacy of your family that you want to leave behind, you could have to give up to be a foot soldier or sell to feed your family, you know. It's insane to even think that as an option.
Yeah, it's just to say, like, the image of God on a person is absolutely worthless if it's not counted during difficult times. You know, like if your value goes away with the difficulty of the times, then you have no value.
Right.
You're just a convenience. Yeah. You know, because conveniences get thrown away during tough times.
Right.
Man, like that's just what it is. And I'm not saying necessarily that, you know, these parents literally think of their kids as conveniences. It's just to make the point. Like, even in our society, like, we do that.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and heck, if COVID was not a good teacher to show that.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it was just crazy. Like, these people that just, again, like, to quote, this is going to sound crazy, man, but I quote weird things all the time. Like, just me and my wife talking, she knows. But, like, just to quote Joker from, like, you know, Dark Knight Rises. I'm just saying, man, like, look, he said it. Don't be mad at me that the clown was right.
This man pulls in conversation I love so much.
Don't be mad at me, the clown was right, bro. Like, he said, look, I'll prove it. When the chips are down, these so-called good people, they'll eat each other.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, watched it happen for the last couple of years with COVID.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, do you really think you're good enough to earn heaven? Yeah. Okay. When there was a toilet paper shortage, how generous were you?
How many dozens of rolls did you hoard for your solo self?
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh my gosh, like God, no, let me into heaven. You know, the angel pulls up TikTok. You know, that's not going to be good. Angel's pulling up TikTok on you on Judgment Day, talking about, isn't this you?
Right.
You punched out the Walmart employee for your toilet paper. Like, don't tell me that you're the righteousness of Jesus Christ over here punching people for 2-ply.
Right.
Like, that, like, I'm just saying, man.
Right.
And, you know, that, like, but we miss that.
Yeah.
You know, like, sitting here arguing. I mean, I understand the world's going to argue because they've already pre-decided they're not going to follow Jesus. So they're just lost in a downward spiral. Right. But within the church over here arguing, how do we deal with this COVID thing? Dude, the way the church has dealt with everything for the past 2,000 years, loving our neighbor, giving even a cup of cool water to the least of these in Jesus' kingdom. Like, what do you mean, how is the church going to get through this?
Yeah.
Like, it'll be difficult. It'll require self-denial. But was that, like, is that really, like, news?
Right.
No one told you that when you signed on the dotted line?
Right.
And that's how this was going to work? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just wild to me. It's wild to me. And again, it's not like I'm saying, like, the church in Columbia is, like, perfect or anything like that. Like, they've probably got their own problems I'm completely unaware of. I'm just saying, like, look at this. Yeah. Just consider everything that's been talked about so far. Has this been your Christianity? Yeah. Has this been the trajectory that your Christianity has been moving towards, where your whole life is about building the kingdom? Yeah. You know, like, again, like, I wouldn't even be on YouTube if not for that, but also, you know, capital nonsense. Like, like, I saw the bankruptness evident in the American Christian system. And I was like, okay, all right. I'm not doing this because I think I'm all that. I'm doing this because I might reach one. Yeah. I might reach one. Yeah. You know, and if reaching one means the next generation's Capitol riots will have at least less Christians in attendance. Because I can't stop the Capitol riots from happening, but can we at least have the victory of not having any, like, claimed Christians flying Jesus flags? Yeah. You know? Yeah. Is that too much to ask?
It just might be.
It might be, but in a nation that wants to call itself a Christian nation, even while it's drunk on debauchery. Yep. Look, man.
I put it on my coins. That's enough.
Come on, man. I'm just saying, man. You know, like, and also I say all this to say, look, man, like, these is regular people. Yeah. You know, like, I wanted to show you the pictures so you didn't accidentally picture them as wearing, like, superhero capes or anything like that. Like, these guys are regular people, man. If he can get on a motorbike that looks like trash and probably rides as trash if he has to fix it, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can strike up a conversation with random coworker, with random student between classes, fellow student between classes, you know? You can and should be having Jesus conversations with your kids. Mm-hmm. You know, those people that God gave you and said, hey, I want you to disciple them the most. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy concept.
Look, that's all I'm saying. Like, you can do this. I understand it's uncomfortable. Jesus said it would be. Yeah. But it's necessary. Yeah. It's necessary. Otherwise, the church is going to continue to be further and further trampled upon, a la Sermon on the Mount. And, you know, what are you going to, what's your Lord going to say to you when you show up? Because if you're going to live mediocre Christianity, the best you can hope for is what Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians, about all your earthly works being burned up and you being saved as through fire. Ooh. But in all honesty, what I truly think is going to happen is Jesus is going to say to you, leave. Yeah, I ain't never knew you, bro. Yeah. That's just me personally. That's where I think a lot of those cats are going to end up. Yeah. But, you know, you play that dangerous game if you want to play that dangerous game. Yeah. I'd rather be the kind that, as that unnamed African missionary said in his poem, as for me, my king will easily recognize me, because my colors will be clear. Not muddy,
Yep.
not hidden. No, I know what flag that is.
Mm.
That's Jesus's flag. It's got a couple bullet holes in it. Looks like he was raising it on an Iwo Jima type situation, but that is definitely the flag of the kingdom
Right.
that he is flying.
Yeah.
Be that.
Yeah.
Be obvious.
Yeah. If Jesus is your king, live like it.
You know, because everyone else is being obvious. The left is being obviously ridiculous. The right is being obviously hypocritical. So why don't you be obviously a Christian?
Right.
Why not?
Yeah.
You know? Anything?
Yeah. Nothing else really, no.
Ooh, man. All right. Well, I'm going to leave it off. I'm going to leave it off here. Check out some of the other content on the channel, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of good stuff. And since this video was about difficulty, might as well route you backwards to another video on difficulty. Me and my wife walking through a miscarriage type situation. Yeah, go watch our video on that. I'm just talking about what does it mean to be blessed in mourning,
Yeah.
as Jesus talks about on, in his Sermon on the Mount. What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Why do bad things happen? I'm not gonna say to good people because none of y'all. Again, you was punching people out for 2-ply. You're not good, right? Why do bad things happen? Just looking at that biblically.
And just
right?
also just like thinking of like rejoicing and suffering in a different light. It's like it's one way. It's like one thing to read that when times are good, but it's another thing to read that verse when they are not.
Facts.
Yeah.
So without further ado, catch you later. Peace.
Yeah.